to the CDTC YouTube channel.
How's it going, Peter?
Good, how are you?
Good. Heard you guys are getting an Aldi.
Yeah, I was just over there at the ribbon this morning. Exciting.
Is everyone able to see my screen? And you just see the one slide, you don't see notes? Great. Okay. So good morning, I'm Jen Saponis, the Capital District Transportation Committee. Welcome to our September Community Planner Forum meeting. Just some reminders about our hybrid meeting guidelines. If you could please keep your microphone muted while you're not speaking, that would be great. You're welcome to turn your camera off, but we would love to see you if possible, especially while you're speaking. And if you have any questions during presentations or anything, you can put them in the chat or raise your hand, and we can get to them when there's a chance to. And just a reminder that we are live streaming to CDTC YouTube, and the meeting will be today. So just a quick run through of who is here, and then I will read off who's in attendance on the Zoom. So we can go around the table here with introductions. Again, I'm Jen Saponis, CDTC staff.
Good morning. Welcome to the Town Colony. Liz Cormos, Village of Bolson Spa.
Chris Bauer, CDTC staff.
Peter Comenzo, Town of Rotterdam.
Rebecca Odell, CDTC staff.
Mark Castiglione, CDRPC.
Sean McGuire, Town of Colony.
Rima Shania, CDTC. And we're welcoming Rebecca Odell, our new CDTC staff person. So this is her first community planner forum. And I'll just read through who I see on the Zoom. Linda Vonderheide, Ellen McNulty Ryan, Nicole McGrath, John Scavo, David Miller, Ben Vigiani, Stephen Golding, Anna Feldman, Catherine Lawson, Todd Pabozzi, Audrey Bernison, Ryan Riper, Lindsay Buck, and Jamie O'Neill. So we have a pretty packed agenda, so I don't want to waste too much time though, because our presenter is currently in an airport and needs to get on a flight in just a moment. So I'm going to load up his presentation and share it on the screen. And David, if you just want to let me know when to move the slides forward, I can do that.
Okay, would it be possible for me to share my screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you want to share your screen, that would be really great. So hold on, I'll
Okay.
just make you co-host. Okay, so you should be able to share your screen, and while you're setting that up, I'll just introduce you. David Miller is from Foursquare. It is a planning firm that is currently working on the bus lane feasibility study. So he's gonna present on this, and then Chris Bauer from CDTC staff, who is the staff person working on it, will be here to answer questions and pick up anywhere that David may have to leave off.
Thanks, Jen. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, great. And are you seeing full screen or the notes version?
Screen.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to jump in, and yes, I got stuck in North Carolina yesterday, and now I'm in Atlanta, and my flight is already boarding, so I'm going to cruise through this pretty quick. I apologize for background noise and the rapidity with which I will go through the slides. I hoped to be home and doing this from home. So I'm going to cover the project scope and some peer examples that we looked at, how we identified corridors, screened them and prioritized them, how we developed concepts for them, and public and stakeholder engagement throughout, and then next steps. And this, again, let me just jump into the next slide. So this slide just gives kind of a quick overview of the whole study. It's kind of the purpose and need of the study. And the first point is just to kind of identify what is the need, where are the bus and speed reliability issues, what are the root causes of delay, really take a data-driven approach, looking at a number of metrics to figure out where that's the case, and where bus improvements are going to be important. Then we also wanted to do a lot of research into previous studies and into peers to understand where they've had success and learn from them and identify what approaches might be good for this region. Then understanding where the peer successes could work here in the capital region in 5 specific locations, and create illustrations of those, and hopefully with some diversity of approach and diversity of location. Throughout the process, we've been talking to the public, we've been talking to the stakeholders, city staff, really wanted to build support, understand their concerns and the potential benefits and issues that can be addressed and brought forward, and really tap into the local knowledge to vet the concepts, and hopefully have the public and the businesses and the stakeholders as partners in the process, moving towards an implementation plan, to really understand who's going to move this forward, and create something that's actionable for the region and CDTA, to pilot some bus priority improvements across the region. So real quickly on the peer examples, we have a whole memo on the website. There's a lot of information. I'm just going to sort of cover this in one quick slide. We looked at a lot of the cities that have already implemented bus lanes in a number of different places. So these are obviously some of the bigger cities with a lot of bus service, the denser locations. But what we found across the board is that these places measured improved speeds, reduced travel time, improved reliability, a lot of times increased ridership, not always, because sometimes the market's already saturated in that way. Other benefits such as reduced crashes, increasing jobs access by getting people to where they're going faster. Most places found very limited or no impact to other vehicles. And across the board, enforcement has been one of the key issues, to make sure that investment is functioning as it was intended. So we did a phase 1 survey last year. We used MetroQuest, which is a software that allows you to use a lot of different tools embedded in the window you sort of see here with tabs, and you can scroll down and have multiple questions and types of questions. We promoted this through 5 pop-up events, 2 webinars, press releases, emails, a lot of help from stakeholders getting the word out, and of course, social media. And we didn't ask people to be planners and tell us where should we have a queue jump. We asked people about their experience, about their behavior, and asked about transportation preferences through a trade-off exercise. We also gave them a map and let them drop pins to tell us where there are issues and what type of issues. So we had 836 total respondents from around the region. This is a zip code density map. We had a big uptick after the city of Troy sent out a direct email to the residents, a big uptick after the city of Albany's mayor posted on her Instagram, big uptick after CDTC on their Twitter account, and the demographics of the respondents pretty closely matched the region as a whole. Sorry about the background noise. So phase 1 survey, I'm just hitting some highlights here. We asked people with a series of pictures, what should be the preference at intersections on roads in terms of our budget and for transit planning itself. So at intersections, 40% of the people strongly preferred giving buses extra green time. On the roads, close to 40% of people preferred removing parking or reducing parking for bus lanes. In terms of spending, about half the people strongly preferred investing in bus priority infrastructure over other types of roadway improvements. And in terms of transit, we asked people, how should we improve transit? And this was actually much more split between just expanding the service we have, the coverage and the frequency, or speeding up the transit that we have. It was sort of a mix across the board. We let people drop pins on a map, 5 different types of pins: congestion, intersection delay, unsafe conditions near bus stops, bus stop amenities, and ADA issues. And related to slow buses, we got about 300 pins and 136 comments. This is a heat map that we created based on those comments. And this gave us really robust data in terms of where people are experiencing very specific issues as they use the system. So this was a great new data source that we had overlaying the other data that I'll be talking about. Some of the key findings of the phase 1 survey: 33% of respondents agree that buses are frequently stuck, and the second most responses for the pin exercise was the slow buses and congestion. About 70% of respondents overall prefer giving buses extra green time, 76 prefer investing in bus priority infrastructure, and 61% prefer removing parking and reducing parking for bus lanes. So it's a self-selecting service survey, obviously, but the 800 plus people who took it showed strong support for prioritizing bus and roadways in the region. So the corridors, how did we identify them, evaluate them, rank them, screen them? We started by just identifying places that had more than 4 buses an hour, where they have relatively low speeds, where they have relatively high throughput, which is the number of people on a bus at a given time driving past a stop. We also just looked at the number of routes, total routes being served, the land use, the roadway cross section, and we looked at both pre-COVID and post-COVID data. So we ended up with these 12 corridors. If you know the BRT system, you'll see that it kind of closely matches that in most cases, because that's where we have a lot of frequent bus. But it's not entirely uniform with the BRT system. So we're seeing overlap with other routes as well across the region. And again, we're looking not just at bus service, but also at density and other measures. So there's this map is on the website and has some detail zoomed in because it's quite a big region. So in terms of evaluating the corridors, we created 5 scores: a transit score, an equity score, a land use score, a commuter score, and an existing investment score. The transit score is based strictly just on the amount of delay the passengers and buses are experiencing. For equity, we looked at traditionally marginalized communities within a quarter mile of the corridors, but also just looked at things like zero-car households and renter-occupied households to understand the benefits to people who might be have a stronger proclivity to use transit if it was convenient and reliable and fast. We looked at both current and future population and employment density. We looked at the number of park and rides and the number of commuters using a demographic subset from the census. We looked at where we have existing BRT and where there are TSP and Q jumps, so that, because one of the things the peer study told us is that when you have bus priority layered on bus priority, it has a force multiplier effect. And then we also did a qualitative assessment, just like a straight up feasibility filter. Is this going to be possible to move forward based on the roadway width, the number of lanes, the parking, the intersection, different things going on at various places. We wanted to have geographic diversity, thinking about the implementation in the future. And then we layered on all that information from the public. And also we have a stakeholder committee, and we were frequently going to them and getting feedback as well. So these are the corridors ranked based on those 5 scores that I described. And you'll see that initially the top 4 in downtown Albany were in the top 5. However, based on discussions, we eliminated Pearl Street in Albany because it is very narrow and has a lot of events. So we didn't think it had a lot of legs in terms of feasibility moving forward, which meant that Schenectady, State Street and Schenectady moved up. So that gives us our 5 corridors to move forward with for concept development. And we were pretty happy with these results going through this data-driven process. with some other qualitative measures and resulting in, 5 corridors that have very good geographic diversity. They're feasible. They have the highest number of buses in the region, the highest number of ridership, the highest amount of delay. A lot of other routes that could take advantage of it, not just BRT. And then the locations are very strongly correlated to traditionally disadvantaged populations and density in general. So to develop concepts, we did some additional analysis into causes of delay and the bus performance. We looked at the curb to curb width, parking issues and opportunities, started to develop some sketches. We did field walks with jurisdictional staff in the snow, which was super fun, made revisions. And then we had follow-on kind of online workshops with jurisdictional staff to just kind of go through an iterative process of thinking about what could work in each segment. We also took a deep dive into the transit data and looked kind of stop by stop at what was causing some of the delay. And we took out the dwell time. So it was from when the door closed at a stop to when it opened at the next stop. So we were excluding the dwell time to really understand, where the buses are experiencing the delay and what type of delay was it? Was it at the intersection? Was it along the road? And we wanted that to really help inform the type of concepts that we developed moving forward. So in Troy, I'm sure you're all familiar, it's fairly narrow. It's a historic core. It's got 3rd and 4th streets are one-way couplets. There's the city told us a lot of opportunity for curbside management, for a parking plan. They already have TSP and queue jumps and a lot of Bus Plus investment. And one of the things we found was there was some benefit to extending it up to Franklin Street, Green Island Bridge intersection. And what we found was northbound, it was definitely slower than would be expected, and southbound a little bit less reliable than would be expected. So we would expect some benefits from bus priority based on that analysis. And based on discussions, we presented some different options for having bus bike lanes in both directions, probably just in the peak period, so that we can have parking in the off-peak for businesses and keep the existing queue jumps and transit priority. On Schenectady, it's very wide. The travel lanes are not well marked. Between Division and Brandywine, there's a ton of turning movements and a lot of traffic and a lot of pedestrian activity. Parking is kind of, the utilization is all over the place depending on where you are. And we already have BRT and TSP improvements. And what we found looking at the bus data was that some of the speeds were slower than to be expected in both directions, and kind of the core of the corridor. And so we started with, how about bus lanes in each direction? These could be either all day or could be peak period. Keep the existing between Kelton and Division where it's a little bit crazier with traffic and people. Just we won't try and do something right now, but the rest of the way, let's see if we can get bus lanes in, and then think about how we could either accommodate bikes in the future, or maybe think about a parallel corridor for bikes. On Albany, Washington, and Broadway. So along the way, we decided that a piece of Broadway would be kind of tacked on to the Washington State corridor rather than being its own corridor. So it's sort of Washington curves down to State and then a piece of Broadway. So this has the highest volumes of anywhere in the system. There's congestion even at the stops, even where we have kind of super stops that are long and have lots of shelters, tons of informal parking, loading and unloading, double parking, trucks everywhere. And there is a transit center just off the corridor, just off Broadway, just on the south side of the CBD. So when we looked at this, we found a lot of substandard speeds and a lot of substandard reliability throughout the corridor in different segments. So we said, well, let's take some of the curbside angled parking and improve the stops. Let's think about repurposing one of those general purpose lanes as a bus lane, perhaps creating an exclusive left turn from Washington to State. But there's so much space in this corridor that we can retain curbside parking almost everywhere and actually retain the median for parking or loading or landscaping as well. And this can be combined with some queue jumps and get a lot of improvement for bus service. And it's not just bus service there because so many routes pulse in and out of that area that it really will have benefits to the entire system. On Central Avenue in Albany, a little bit to the northwest of the downtown, the city was already looking at a road diet and enhancing bicycle and pedestrian facilities due to the number of crashes in that area. There's already been a lot of investment in BRT and transit priority in the Lark, Washington area. On-street parking heavily utilized by adjacent retail businesses. There's a lot of double parking, but no congestion from it, which tells us that probably we've got more lanes than we need to. And a lot of the existing bus stops are on the far side in a parking lane. So this creates some issues at some of the intersections with the buses getting in and out of traffic and kind of sitting at intersections longer than they need to. What we found was some segments where the buses are slower than we would expect, and also some segments where the reliability is less than we would expect. So here we took a little bit different approach. We assumed that the road would be narrowed to one lane in each direction, but not bus lanes because, you know, the city is moving forward with some bike improvements. So we want to show the bike improvements, but also see what we can do with buses. And in this case, moving stops to the far sides, pairing that with some queue jumps to help buses get in and out, and keeping parking on both sides, except, you know, where the bus stops are, and potentially coming up with a proper bike lane to help bikes in this corridor, and improve pedestrian safety by just reducing the crossing width of the roadway. I will say that throughout these conversations with the cities, we had discussions about the need for parking studies, for further traffic analysis, more transit operations analysis, further geometric design, thinking about streetscape and multimodal improvements. So this is really just the first step, is understanding where we have the most need and what could work at those locations in terms of best priority. We know there still would be a lot of work to be done after this. After we went through this process with the stakeholders, we went to the mayors of the 3 cities and showed them what we were thinking about, showed them the issues and the potential benefits, and kind of some different concepts and diagrams of what we were thinking about. The mayor of Schenectady was open to queue jumps and bus lanes. In Troy, they were open to queue jumps and bike facilities, and in Albany, open to queue jumps and bike facilities. And some potential for bus lanes, but it depended on where we were talking about. So all of that information went into our second survey, which we used SurveyMonkey for, and we promoted this through 3 pop-ups and a lot of press releases, emails, stakeholder assistance, social media. We again asked people about their experience in travel behavior. We asked about their modal priorities by corridor, and I'll show you how we did that, and also standard demographic questions. We got more people than the first time, still a good geographic distribution, home zip codes shown here, work zip codes. So highly kind of, following the dense areas of the region and where people work in Albany. And we saw a really good response when we ran an ad on Facebook to direct people to the survey. So what we showed people was street mix of different concepts. Essentially, we figured this was probably the best way for people to kind of understand the potential improvements we were thinking about. So we gave them 4 choices for Albany, Washington, State Street. The top left is existing. Do you think we should just prioritize vehicles and keep it as is? The top right, we will take a lane, a general purpose lane, and make bus lanes mid-block. The bottom left, we could take some space, take a general purpose lane and put in bike lanes, but create a center turning lane. And then on the bottom right, illustrating what it would look like at intersections with a bus lane and a bike lane. And people overwhelmingly prefer ranked pedestrian improvements as the #1 thing we should prioritize. Bus lanes and bikes were kind of tied for second. If you throw queue jumps in with bus lanes, then you get a sort of a more clear 1, 2, 3. and personal vehicles ranked last.
Then my passengers, please keep an eye on the list.
For Albany Central Avenue, again, we showed existing conditions at the top. Then we showed a protected buffered bike lane in the middle, and then what it would look like with queue jumps with bike lanes at intersections, and asked people to rank those. Again, pedestrian improvements was number 1, queue jumps number 2, and bike improvements number 3, personal vehicles, a very distant last place. So that was encouraging that people saw the queue jumps with bike lanes as a strong second place here. In Troy, we showed the existing conditions, which is basically 2 parking lanes and 1 giant general purpose lane. And we showed how if you take a parking lane, you can fit in a bike lane in the middle here and keep 2 travel lanes, or if you want to do queue jumps at the intersections with a bike lane, what that would look like at the bottom. And again, overwhelmingly, people ranked pedestrian improvements as number 1. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, we said, well, we didn't show a concept for pedestrian improvements. We explained that it would be safety improvements, more amenities, better lighting, better crosswalks, that type of thing. And so even without a picture, people in every quarter ranked pedestrian improvements as number 1. Here, the queue jumps and the bike improvements were more or less tied for second place. So strong desire for taking some of the space on the street for bus and bike priority improvements. Then finally, Schenectady State Street, we showed existing conditions in the top left, bus lane in the top right, just taking the parking, a protected bike lane on the bottom left with no bus improvements, and then a queue jump on the bottom right, and ask people to rank those. And in this corridor was the highest number of people ranked pedestrian improvements. About half said that should be the number 1 priority, which is not surprising given the number of pedestrians and the number of crashes that happen with pedestrians there. Bus lanes were ranked second. If you put bus lanes and queue jumps together, it's about 30%. Bike improvements was not ranked first very often, but had a lot of second place votes. So when you break down the score, actually it's a little bit closer in terms of the ranking, the score between bus lanes and bike lanes in this corridor. We also asked people just, how do you feel about queue jumps, and how would you feel if we just expanded queue jumps across the region? And 85% of people said that they would probably support or definitely support queue jumps. So that was a very positive result there. And so some of the key takeaways, pedestrian improvements overwhelmingly ranked number 1, expansion of queue jumps overwhelmingly supported. On Washington State, again, we had bus and bike lanes sort of tied and queue jump in there as well. So bus priority about 33% of first place votes. On Central Avenue in Albany, queue jumps were ranked second place behind pedestrians. 3rd and 4th Street in Troy, it was basically a tie between queue jumps and bike lanes. And then on State Street, bus priority had 30% of the first place votes. So we're taking all of this information and synthesizing it into a draft final report, the sort of final concepts and all the technical information and appendices. And we'll go back to the public with a 45-day comment period, make any adjustments that are necessary, and then release the final report. And then CDTA and other local agencies will take some of these efforts forward and continue doing some of those further studies that I mentioned to continue to move bus priority and bike priority forward in the region. And with that, I'm going to have to go get on my plane. I hope you could all hear me. And again, sorry for all the noise, and I hope to meet more of you in the future. It's been great working with the folks up there in Albany.
Thank you, David. Have a good flight. I've had anxiety for you. Please get a good flight.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Luckily, he's hopefully he's close to the gate.
The whole time. Okay, so Chris Bauer, who has been working on this study as the CDTC staff person, is here. So are there any questions or anything? Liz?
I just have probably question from ignorance, exactly what is a queue jump?
So a queue jump is a signal that is set up with essentially with like a little side bus lane. So instead of the bus being in normal traffic,
Right,
it sort of gets to cut the line.
okay,
And it's usually in conjunction with like the stop, be like with the lanes and the stop, and then the bus will get its own green and get out in front of
okay, good,
the group. We have a couple in the region. The closest one to here is over at the intersection of Wolf and Central Avenue.
oh, really,
There's a
okay,
few, yeah, there's a few of them in the region, and they do work really well.
yeah, because we could probably use one in both the spot.
They're hardly even noticeable.
Yeah,
When you're in the car, you don't really notice it, because it's like you have a red light and like you're just waiting for your red light. And the bus
bus can
goes,
go.
and it's like just a few seconds delay.
Yeah,
The bus goes and then you get your green light and you go, and it's a little blip.
sounds great.
and the benefit is, it speeds up the service and it makes it a little bit more reliable and a little less subject to, congestion. To some extent.
Any other questions? Also, please feel free to use the chat on Zoom if you prefer.
Yeah, just to clarify, so this is some VRT locations and some not, right?
So the original corridor screening looked at some locations that are BRT and some that are not. In the end, through the process, the 5 that kind of rose to the top for further investigation were where there's already BRT service, which sort of makes sense because that's where there's currently the most buses and the most riders.
I have a question. Whatever,
Mhm.
I can go last. Go ahead. So what's the next steps? You mentioned that implementation, an implementation plan will be part of this. We get to that part, so can we talk about that?
So, right, so it was interesting in the process that most of the local folks that we talked to wanted more. So I saw that as like a really positive thing. Like this, we really didn't have like the budget to go into like detailed traffic analyses and level of service and all that. But everyone was asking for that, like, hey, we'd love to see more, we want more information about this. So that's really like the logical next step with CDTA. We'll have to work with whatever jurisdiction it's in and try to advance some of these projects. I'm not sure which one is gonna kind of take the lead. I think all of them have some merit to kind of be the first one, but there's outline in the draft plan that has all those next steps, and I know you couldn't see it, but I got a slide with that. It's kind of like, hey, don't forget we have to do all these other things first, because everyone was like, yeah, let's do it tomorrow, and then the traffic engineer like, hold on a second, what about level of service and all that? So there's still other things that have to happen. It seems like there was a huge amount of support for the transit signal priority and the queue jumps especially, so I could see that, just kind of crystal ball here, that being kind of like the first things that happen before full on bus priority.
Was there any thought about the outreach to maybe try to engage people that aren't the small group of people that self-select to complete these kind of surveys? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that was the first one that after we did it, we're like, well, this is great, but we feel like we didn't get, there was an effort to try to reach out to those different groups. The most success we had was with actually the elected officials, because their Twitter accounts, things like that, reach more than just the transit folks. So the next time around, we really did try to have them push it more than like CDTC or CDTA. And when CDTA sends something out, of course, right, like all their fans are gonna respond. The thing that we had the most success with was actually the Facebook ad. I think the most success at getting other non-transit enthusiasts Because that ended up just pulling in like people who, you know, maybe follow like an Albany neighborhood association or something like that. I don't know how the algorithm works, but there was more just like regular folks, even maybe some who were what am I trying to, not in favor of these types of things.
The anti-bus contingent.
Because that right now in Albany is a thing, right? So
Yes,
I think some of them, it appears that they did participate.
I become part of that contingent when I get in my car and I'm behind a bus.
Well, then you should be off.
It's a temporary circumstance.
You want a queue jump?
Yes, for me personally.
3:50.
Any other question? Anyone on Zoom have a question? All right, well, thank you, David. Hopefully he gets home okay. Thank you, Chris, for kind of picking up where David left off, and when there's a final report, we'll definitely, you know, we'll keep everyone updated as the project moves along and is finalized, so everyone have a chance to review, take a look at it in more details.
Yeah, thanks. And I have to step away, but if anybody has any other questions, just feel free to reach out to me. Whatever I can't answer, I'll forward it. So,
Thank you, Chris. Um, somebody's not- I can't see. One second, I apologize. Okay. Okay, can everyone see the screen again? The slides, okay? That's great, okay. All right, so we're gonna move on in the agenda. The next item is the jobs access report, which CDTC now has presented twice, once at planning committee and policy board, but for anyone who has not been able to take a look at it or listen to a presentation, we do have a recording, Rima recorded a presentation. It's very good and thorough and goes through the key highlights from the report, and you can find that on CDTC's YouTube channel. It's the most recent policy board meeting, and then there's a live presentation from planning committee in August. You can download the report from CDTC website. If you, that first bullet kind of shows the path to go to our homepage, and then under what we do, environment and equity, and then the equity advisory committee page, you'll see the jobs access report down at the bottom. But this report really looked at, you know, the mismatch between housing and jobs, and what that looks like in the region, and who has the most barriers to accessing employment. So this report and presentation kind of opened up discussion with policy board about developing an equity policy for CDTC. So we did get the go-ahead from policy board to move forward with that. So CDTC is going to research how MPOs are developing equity policies and how CDTC could do a better job at emphasizing equity, defining equity, and really making sure that it's embedded in all of our planning initiatives, investments, and everything that we do. So as that is drafted and moves forward, we'll keep everyone updated. Okay, so our next agenda item are the CDRPC planning updates. So I'll pass it to Mark, and then Mark, if you want to pass it to Todd.
Okay. Sounds good. I know Kate Maynard, who is actually out of the office today, wants at some point to give a recap of the FLIP program this year. It was a very successful program that we held. So FLIP is an acronym for Future Leaders in Planning. Back in August, we engaged between 15 and 20 college-bound high school students to introduce them to the depth and breadth of fields in planning and allied professions. So it was an experiential program that was a week long. We partnered with the University of Albany's planning program. We had a base camp at University of Albany in their new E-Tech building. We were able to take them to a variety of locations across the Capital District, including, meeting with folks in the South End, meeting with folks in downtown Troy, taking them on a scavenger hunt throughout the city of Saratoga Springs, connecting them with recycling facilities, farming operations, natural and cultural preservation initiatives. By getting them out in the field for them to experience these things, creates a much different learning environment for students when they're actually experiencing, these things in the real world versus in the classroom. So very successful this year, and I'm sure Kate will give a nice presentation during the next planners forum. Save the date. You may have received emails. We will be coming back, like MacArthur, returning to the Philippines with our workshop, October 28th at Hudson Valley Community College in person. The opening plenary session will be on recreational marijuana, and no, there will not be any free samples. In other news, I'll put on my Upstate APA hat very quickly. The Upstate APA conference will happen October 12th through 14th in Buffalo. And for the professional planners out there, APA is also offering an AICP scholarship, a diversity scholarship, so focused on women and minority groups. If you're successful with the scholarship, it will reduce your exam fee from $255 to $85. The deadline for that application is September 23rd. Back to CDRPC stuff. Our Capital Region Indicators website, you may be familiar with, has been updated over the course of the last 6 months to include dashboards for zip codes and for all school districts in the 8-county region. So now all the zip codes and school districts will have the same 50+ indicator dashboard available for you. In addition, we've added some additional data points, including employment by industry, and I believe salary by industry. In addition, the mapping tool has been updated to now include 50+ pre-populated maps based on census variables. So if you go to the website now, you'll be able to bring up a variety of pre-populated maps on any one of the geographies to talk about aging populations, populations that are in need, and any number of census variables. We have completed our initial run of municipal level population projections based on the 2020 redistricting data. We have not yet completed the population projections at the census tract level because the full decennial census data is still not yet available in September of 2022, but we will proceed with those at pace. But if you need, for whatever reason, I know Saratoga County reached out to us for some population projections for some of their programs and their funding allocations. If you need something like that, we have it at the municipal level, not at the census tract. We are still working with the counties in the region on some broadband planning work. So if you have any broadband issues, feel free to reach out to me and we can see if we can address those issues in this project. A reminder, we are still accepting applications for our joint CDRPC CDTC technical assistance program. It could help your community by providing free technical assistance services for anything related to comprehensive planning, GIS mapping, public meetings, economic impact analyses. There's a variety of things that we can do in that program. So if you have any ideas, project ideas, you can email techassist@cdrpc.org and ask for a meeting to talk about your idea. And finally, we are going to be celebrating and awarding our annual Erastus Corning intermunicipal planning awards on October 27th at 9 Pin Cidery in downtown Albany. This year we'll be awarding 3 of those corner awards to organizations throughout the region. That's my update. So now I'll turn it over to Todd Herbozzi, who's participating remotely today, to talk a little bit about some of the CDRPC sustainability portfolio programs.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to bring to attention, if you haven't heard already, and hopefully the municipalities in attendance have heard already, about the new program opportunity that we have through a grant from the Department of Environmental Conservation that is supporting the Climate Smart Communities program. So many of the communities in the region have been participating with us in the Clean Energy Community Program, which is a grant program for technical assistance on clean energy actions funded by NYSERDA. This is a complementary program funded now by DEC. So we just launched it in the later part of the winter this year. And essentially, it is another technical assistance program in which we're using the same territory model. The state has funded 2 programs now based on this idea of a consortium of regions. And so we manage the program for the Eastern Upstate Territory, which is covers 4 regions: the Hudson Valley, the Mohawk Valley, the North Country, and the Capital District, and a total of 28 counties. And we have different regional agencies and private consultants, depending on the task, to assist us in that in those efforts. And primarily, the effort is to assist local municipalities through our outreach coordinators. So we have a team of outreach coordinators that can provide assistance not only in the clean energy actions we've been working on with NYSERDA, but now we've expanded that menu of offerings to include what's particularly relevant for the capital region's 4 core counties is climate action planning, or sometimes you'll hear it referred to as climate mitigation planning. And the focus of climate action or climate mitigation planning is to document and create a baseline of your emissions, either at the municipal level in terms of your own operations or at the community-wide level. So we've broken it into 2 different kinds of planning initiatives. And then to set goals based on this documentation. So we have tools that document your emissions, and then we have a process in which we work with local committees to guide them through setting goals to reduce those emissions and point them towards actions that can, in fact, do that. So right now, in the first phase of the program, we're focusing on government operations inventories and action planning for your operations. So we will be looking at your municipal facilities, your municipal fleet, and other sources of emission. If you have, say, a landfill or an ice skating rink, and we are basically working with you to identify ways to reduce those emissions. So that is free technical assistance, and it's available to any of the communities in the region. And if you're interested in that assistance, just reach out to me, and I can direct you. It'll be Todd at cdrpc.org, and I can direct you to the proper outreach coordinator that serves your particular community and talk to you about that. Just as a note, the program is broader than the offering that I just mentioned. With climate action planning, we do continue to offer the service of climate certification support. This is an initiative that actually bridges both programs. So we've been offering climate certification support through the NYSERDA program for the past 6 years, and we still have 3.5 years left on a grant to continue doing that. We offer support for the DEC grant programs, the Climate Smart Community Grant Program. In particular, we've been focusing lately on the ZEV rebates, which would subsidize either purchase of electric vehicles or electric vehicle infrastructure. And we are also involved right now with other initiatives in the territory, but not specific to the 4 counties. And so they're not being offered right now in the 4 counties, but I'll mention them. We are doing climate adaptation and resilience planning under this new initiative. And right now we are working on a county-based initiative with Columbia County and the municipalities within Columbia County. And that's going to take up our effort with adaptation planning through this year. We are subcontracting that task to a consortium of Cornell Cooperative Extensions. And we are also doing transportation listening sessions. So there is a transportation planning piece to this, in which we are looking at a small subset. They want us to look at 3 communities, possibly up to 6, and to be able to talk about sustainable transportation alternatives, be able to get input on how receptive communities are to those kinds of things, and to be able to develop a report that points them in a direction of the kinds of things they can do to implement sustainable transportation and fund it. And so we have targeted communities in this phase outside of the MPO zone. I had talked to Sandy about this early on when we were first proposing, and it seemed a little redundant to try to have kind of a listening session quasi planning initiative within an MPO that already does that with their, in this case, with the New Visions plan. So we targeted the city of Amsterdam and the town of Amsterdam right now, and we're working with them, and we're coordinating that with CDTA, who just launched their bus system in the city as well and into the town. And so that's underway, and we're working with Planning for Places as the consultant for that task. So that's in a nutshell what we're doing. And this is a 2-year grant, but we expect there's going to be ongoing funding for this after this 2-year period.
Thanks, Todd. Does anyone have any questions for Todd or Mark? Great. Thank you again. Okay. So this might be difficult for people in the room to see all of the details in this, but I wanted to bring attention to some recent changes to New York State traffic safety legislation. One recently passed law that you have probably heard about is the authorization for municipalities to reduce speed limits to 25 miles per hour. Previously, municipalities were prohibited from reducing speed limits below 30 miles per hour. So it has been changed to 20 miles per hour. CDTC is of course here to provide any sort of assistance or data that municipalities may be looking for as they research this or pursue implementation. We've read about some communities considering it. As we learn more or see other communities implement this and what process they use or whether or not they do a full traffic study or a planning exercise. But we'll try and gather best practices and offer that, provide guidance to communities. It does require that the traffic engineer sign off on it. So there's, debate on whether that means that a full traffic study is required.
One question, I mean, we have, in our area, we have state routes and county routes as well. Are they going to look at reducing the speed to 25 from 30? Because we go Route 50 through the village, it's 30, but that's a state route. That's not under our jurisdiction. We can do the side roads, but would they look at also potentially reducing the speed through the village to 25?
That's a good question.
Or the county route that goes bisects that?
Yeah, if it applies to the state and counties, I would say probably there has to be some sort of coordination, but it's new legislation and we're yet to see it be implemented yet. So we'll definitely, see what kind of partnerships, coordination, process people use. Yeah. The other piece of legislation that was recently passed was the increase in fines for leaving the scene of a car crash. So hopefully that will help deter hit and run incidents. And then the addition of bicycle and pedestrian related laws to the New York State driver's test. Obviously, this will have the biggest impact on new drivers. It will be kind of a long-term, maybe a slight culture shift. But currently or previously, there are very few words in the driver's manual or on the New York State driver's test that mention pedestrians or bicyclists. So maybe it's no surprise that in New York State, we're not the most friendly towards bicyclists or pedestrians. But there has been some effort to make drivers more aware of what the laws are and what their responsibilities are. We continue to update our bipartisan infrastructure law webpage that's on the CDTC website. If you go to our homepage, there's a button or banner up at the top that says new federal transportation grants, and it is page, it'll take you to the page that we've developed to list out all of the current bipartisan infrastructure law programs. There are new programs literally being announced almost every single day, and we are trying our best to stay on top of it. Yesterday, the Protect program guidelines were announced, so we'll add that to the webpage. Today, the Safe Streets for All grants are due, I believe. I know there are a few tools that Federal Highways has developed to help folks navigate the law. We've provided links to them, but we'll also put them in the notes. If anyone has any question about programs, or they need some data or information for an application, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. We have, where possible, developed tools or maps to help provide some guidance. There's a checklist for the Safe Streets for All program, and then for the NEVI program, which is the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, we did develop a map that highlights areas that are eligible for the funding based on the program criteria. So as that kind of information is available, we will put out tools and guidance as much as we can. Anyone have any questions or comments on the bill?
Sorry, this is Nicole. I was just gonna say I'm also available if anyone has questions about the infrastructure bill.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
Okay. CDTC has released a new solicitation for ADA transition plans. So for communities who are looking for assistance with adopting and implementing transition plans, applications are due September 30th. Any questions or concerns should be emailed to cdtc@cdtcnpo.org. And information about the transition plans is on our website. We are in the process right now of wrapping up a couple of transition plans that we've been working on with communities. So we do hope to, once those have been finalized, maybe have a presentation on them or a discussion about how, the community's experience and how they've been helpful or how they plan to move forward with them.
This will be another round because that's a couple of weeks away.
We're going to continue to support ADA transition plan and ADA planning. So I think that there'll definitely be future support. I don't know if there'll be, we'll get to it in a little bit. We're still going to do another UPWP, so it might be called something different, but CDTC will continue to support ADA planning. So. And Rima, you can chime in if I leave anything out, but we have coordinated with the Federal Highway Administration in their launch of the Go Easy smartphone application. You may have already heard about this or already downloaded it and using it, but now through September 30th, if you download the app and you register as a Capital Region user, You can get gift cards, to different stores and restaurants for, basically trying different modes or doing trip planning through the Go Easy smartphone application. So the smartphone application, it integrates with or it can read full information from your calendar on your smartphone. It picks up on past travel patterns, so it knows like, oh, every day you go to work here. So you may get an alert that says, hey, in 30 minutes, you have a doctor's appointment, and here are some options for how you might get there. So it is trying to sway behaviors, offer options that are not just driving alone. I downloaded it, it's been observing how it works, but did I miss anything, Rima?
No.
Anything to add?
So you're giving the federal government access to where you are all the time.
Yeah, I mean, so private companies, if you have a cell phone, they know where you are all the time.
Hearing
But-
point, they're just
I don't-
contacting.
Yeah,
I
your credit card
just wanna
company is
just wanna
selling
make
that
it clear, this is
information.
a more direct pathway. My FBI agent knows where I am.
So, yeah, I mean, it is tracking like your travel patterns and offering you some tips on how to change the travel patterns if it's open to that. So,
So it's like Amazon, Target and Starbucks also accessing that data and
No,
hopefully not.
no. No. So it's an FHWA funded study. But it's a consultant contract, so the consultant developed the app. And, is administering the study. So, it's not the FHWA like getting your raw data. It's going through this proprietary, consultant app. They're using like Amazon and Starbucks and I don't know what else, like gift cards, but it's not that those companies are getting their data, it's just that they're trying to incentivize people from, sort of opting into the study.
Yeah.
Using, the gift card that's.
So yeah, if you're interested, it's available to download and you can earn up to $5 a week. So,
And boxes.
an update on the 2022-2027 Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, it was adopted September 1st. I know we've kind of talked about the TIP for a long time now. It is finally adopted, and then it moves on to become part of the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. These charts just kind of illustrate how funding was programmed in a couple of different ways. In a summary of the program by project type, although some of this is kind of misleading, because there are pavement and bridge projects that include bike and ped, other types of improvements and facilities. So, but just generally, that's by project type, and then by county, which includes NISDOT projects. And we did extensive public outreach. I would say we probably did the most public outreach than we've done previously for TIPS. We had a online workshop, we had 2 open houses, one in Saratoga County, one in Albany County, and we had several pop-up events where we were at farmers markets or libraries, just kind of catching people passing by. We got about 30 survey responses. So with all that, I still think that the TIP is a kind of a difficult plan or program to engage the public on, because it's maybe abstract, or if it's not a project that's happening that's going to directly affect you, like your commute. I think it's hard to envision like what this program is going to look like once it's built, or how does it affect the region or individuals. So we're continuing to work on how we talk about the TIP and how we engage with the public on the TIP and in investments in transportation in general. But from the survey feedback that we did receive, there does seem to be some interest in investing more in bicycle pedestrian and transit projects, in safety. And so obviously these are a little bit different priorities than what are programmed in the TIP. So we will continue to improve the way we talk about the TIP and engage with the public on these kinds of things. The 2023-24 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. This is basically just CDTC's work program. We moved to a one-year program last year. This is an approximate timeline for when we will begin the update of the new UPWP. Once again, we are going to do a region-wide call for projects. We're working on the solicitation, but we are aiming to release it in October and to collect applications in December. And this will include, communities will be able to request anything from a $2,000 planning assistance project to over $100,000 planning assistance project, so long as obviously it is consistent with the federal planning factors and our new visions, planning principles and goals. So we're currently developing this solicitation. So if your community is thinking about doing different planning exercises, whether it is a parking study, a pre-engineering feasibility study, a climate and resiliency plan related to transportation infrastructure, or just the traditional corridor plans, hamlet master plans, bike ped plans, that this may be an opportunity to apply for some funding assistance. And there'll be different match requirements depending upon the budget. And we are trying to minimize the burden on municipalities, both with match and the amount of paperwork involved for the application. So we promise we'll make it easy, because we know that you have lots of applications, especially lately, to go through. So does anyone have any questions about the UPWP or feedback on the previous solicitation that we should keep in mind for this upcoming solicitation?
Just keeping track of everything that's coming out, deadlines and.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we're doing this, instead of doing multiple solicitations throughout the year, like a separate linkage solicitation, a separate capital coexist mini grant solicitation, a separate complete streets workshop solicitation, is to kind of consolidate it and make it easier. And then we want to have some just kind of like open assistance available on an ongoing basis throughout the year. So we're not so deadline. There's not so many deadlines to keep track of. So we hope this is easier for communities. Our goal is to, provide value and really assist with where communities are, currently unable to do things. So. So then the final CDTC update is, this is, again, I'm sorry for anyone in the room, there are copies of these status initiative tables here if you'd like. But these are just updates on ongoing CDTC supported projects and programs. We are beginning 3 new linkage studies. So there is an REI out for the town of Brunswick's Hoosic Growth Corridor study, and we're about to release, getting ready to release an REI for the Sand Creek Road Complete Streets feasibility study. And we have collected proposals and are evaluating, we'll select a consultant soon for the city of Schenectady's Albany and Crane Street linkage study. The Patroon feasibility study has been completed, and that final report is on the project website. their public outreach has been completed for the federal street corridor study, for the draft recommendations, and also for the Rensselaer waterfront connectivity study. So drafts for those two are currently being developed. The draft land use zoning language for Manans is currently being developed. We have a lot of other projects, as you can see, going on. We've heard about the bus lane feasibility study. And as you can see, there's a lot of other studies going on, and we'll continue to update everyone, on this. We'll be working with DOT on the 787 study as well, so we'll be tracking that. This wasn't on the agenda, but I just wanted to bring attention to this opportunity to provide comment on CDTC Smart Mobility Toolbox. So this is a product that's being developed through the Smart Communities Program. It really looks at different technologies that could be implemented, integrated into transportation infrastructure to improve mobility and accessibility and safety in the region. We're looking for two kinds of feedback. There's kind of feedback for the transportation professionals, engineers, planners, what is feasible to implement? What kind of assistance is needed to help operate these kinds of systems? How will these improve your communities? But then on the public side, what is the comfort level with different technologies? We talked about the Go Easy app tracking, right? So do you have a discomfort with using smartphone applications for travel? Do you have privacy and data concerns? So as things like cameras, sensors, or these smartphone applications do become more part of our travel and transportation, how does the public feel about that? Are things going too fast, too slow, just right? Should we continue to integrate these technologies? So there's a self-led public outreach tool right now up on the project website. Mark mentioned that CDRPC's Fall Planning and Zoning Conference is October 28th. Information on how to register is on their website. The New Visions virtual learning series continues next Tuesday. There's a webinar on planning tools for vehicle electrification. So we have panelists from CDRPC talking about their experience working with communities and installing EV charging stations. We have someone from Plug-in Stations Online who will go through step by step. How do you install an EV charging station? How do you identify a site? What are things that you should be aware of? What are the real costs of maintenance and operations of the time? And then we'll have Lucas Rogers from Albany County talk about the county's fleet electrification efforts. They have shifted to electric vehicles for a lot of their operation vehicles, but also most recently their sheriff's department. So we'll hear about that and how that's going. If you missed the August webinar, it was on installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons and other mid-block pedestrian crossing types. And it was a great webinar, really went step by step. Again, how to identify good sites for an RFP, what are things you should be aware of, funding, costs, and other treatments for mid-block pedestrian crossing. So that's on our website, or you can find it on the CDTC YouTube channel. We already talked about that. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to all of you now. If you have any local or other planning projects and initiatives that you want to announce or share with everyone, you can raise your hand, put it in the chat, or if you're here or on the table, just shout it out. Sean.
So the town of Colony for the second year is going to celebrate National Community Planning Month. APA may have downgraded the event, but we're amping it up. Monique's done a great job pulling together a series of programs during the last week of October, actually leading up to CDRPC's workshop. So Monique, do you want to just the highlights of what you've got lined up.
Sure. So we have a composting 101 from Cornell Cooperative Extension. We have, no, I'm sorry, from Zero Waste. Cornell Cooperative Extension is going to be giving a presentation on using native plants in your garden. We have DEC coming to talk about what New York's done climate change, for climate change. And we have an invasive species walk with Siena College. And on Friday, you can come have coffee with the planner. Sorry. Oh, Monday.
Monday. Friday we have open.
No, Friday we have the invasive.
Oh, the invasive species walk. Okay, all right, so
Are you serving the coffee?
Yes.
try to.
No planners happy hour for planners?
Just
That'll be the happy hour, 2 o'clock for coffee on Monday.
Lame.
Yeah, we did talk to, I talked to, Gilderland about their coffee with a planner. And, he said, make sure you get it locally, don't get it from Panera, because people were upset about it. I totally understand that, so we're doing that, and then I am excited, my other hat is, as an adjunct at the university. And with COVID, we had to sort of suspend guest speakers in the, planning 505, we call it the comprehensive planning class. And so that is back up and running. I've tried to rebuild some of my lists and get some emails out. If you didn't get an invitation, it's not because I haven't thought of you, it's just things are moving quick and fast. So there are a couple of dates we still have open if you'd like to come and speak to the students. They're Wednesdays this fall at 6 o'clock. You're welcome to stay as long or as at least an hour. I say as little as you want, but thank you for Jen's going to join us, Mark's going to join us. So just shoot me an email, McGuire@colony.org if you'd like to come and share your experience with students. There's no real, I can tell you what we're talking about in the class, in those weeks leading up, but it's really just a chance for the students to connect with other professionals and then start to realize how much we love our work. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Mark?
Just in other news, Sean wears many hats. A hat that he will be putting on January 1st is the president of the New York Upstate chapter of the American Planning Association.
Mark will forcibly hold me down and thrust that hat.
Yes, so congratulations, Sean. And in addition to that, just going back to the University of Albany's planning department, they will be having a meeting in the afternoon of 9:26 related to the reaccreditation. The Planning Advisory Board is coming to campus. And I know the department has reached out to alums of the planning program in the region and also practicing planners in the region to participate in that effort, and I believe in that activity that afternoon. So if you haven't received the email, look in your email. You should have gotten an email from Marcia from the planning department about that event.
Any other updates?
We're applying for the New York, which one? New York Forward.
New York Forward?
And, we're gathering projects that some relate to, it's a little bit unclear how much they will fund sort of transportation related sidewalks that thing, but they're talking about upgrading your downtown. And, with public input, most of the comments are fix the sidewalks, upgrade downtown, fix the pedestrian access. So we'll see, how that works.
Great. Anyone on Zoom have an update or anything that they want to share that they're working on?
Hi, everyone. This is Nicole McGrath from FHWA. I don't have anything that I'm specifically working on, but I just wanted to let you all know that I've recently become the liaison for APA's Transportation Planning Division for the upstate New York area. So as I kind of learn more about that role, and I can share updates here too about what APA's Transportation Planning Division is working on, and if there's anything of interest for the group. So, and if there's anything you'd like me to share with the national chapter or the national division, let me know.
That'd be great. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
I can share a brief update. Anna Felton from the town of East Greenbush. I took over for Adam Yagelski back in June, but I've been with the town for about a year and a half now. We are plowing through our zoning update. We're just getting through to new uses, bulk and area tables, very exciting stuff. We have a pretty active zoning update committee, been holding those meetings monthly, and we've had some relatively good turnout. So that's been exciting. We're working with MJ on this project. They completed our comprehensive plan update back in May 2021. And MJ is also working with us through a CDTC traffic impact study for Route 4 corridor going through town of East Greenbush and town of North Greenbush. So that's a good kind of confluence of efforts for all that as we kind of update many big projects in the town. We're hoping to have a draft update early 2023.
Thanks, Anna.
Oh, I forgot to mention, we're updating our comprehensive plan. The original one, or the last one was 25 years ago, so it's kind of overdue. And we hope to wrap it up at the end of the year and then start looking at zoning. And we also have a brownfield opportunity area grant, which we need to kick off. So we got some stuff going on.
Yeah. Busy. All right. Any other updates?
I have an update.
Yeah.
My name is Stephen Golding. I'm the planner for the city of Waterville. I'm also a grad student at SUNY Albany right now. Sean was actually is a professor of mine last semester. So we are I just started working here, and I got tasked with updating the 2011 comprehensive plan and just working through that right now. And I believe I'm still getting kind of filled in on it because I'm still kind of new here, but there's a transportation bike pedestrian plan for the bridge, the Congress Street Bridge. And I don't know, I think we're still waiting to hear back from that. I believe it's a TIP grant. So, got it.
Okay, I can check the tip, but see if it's was programmed, but I don't know the status of that. I'll have to check that. I don't know off the top of my head. Okay. Any other updates? All right. Thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 15th. We will again have a hybrid meeting, so I welcome you all here. We have upgraded our coffee game. We have flavored creamer now. Maybe that will get you here. And it's December, so it's the holidays. I will even bribe you with snacks if you'd like, if anything to get you here so we can see you again. But I also understand wanting to participate remotely, so we will keep that option available to folks. If you have a program, a project, or something that you'd like to present to the planner forum on or talk to the planner forum on, please feel free to reach out, let us know. We'd be happy to get you on the agenda or set something up, or just connect you with other people in the planner forum. So I hope everyone has a great rest of the fall. And we'll see you in December, if not before, at the Planning and Zoning Conference or another event. So take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.